Hello, everyone. Hello. Oh my goodness. We are live and I am here and I'm so delighted to be here and back with all of you for our Twitch and Stitch and Twitch Tuesdays. I really do need to remember which direction it goes, as I always seem to forget. Hello, 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 my darlings. Hello. Oh my God. Hello, I missed you, Bess. Christina, it's so good to see you. Also, thank you. Oh my goodness. Hello. I'm back. I'm back. It's been a wonderful, grand adventure. I was deeply inspired. I want to sew all the things, but I also don't know what things I'm going to be sewing. So what an adventure. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's so good to be back. The trip was also absolutely extraordinary. I'm not going to lie. It was an amazing adventure. I did have the best time. So we went to the Victoria and Albert Museum not once but twice. It was so good for those who love art and fashion. So the first time we just went through the Schiaparelli exhibit, which we spent 2 hours just in that exhibit, and it was everything. It was incredible. I will definitely be writing about that at more length for Patreon. And then we went back the next time with hopes of seeing the historical fashion exhibit, which was sadly closed for renovation. But we did see so much at the beautiful museum. They had a theatrical costume exhibit on at the time, and we did go through that one, and it was just really extraordinary. I took lots of photos throughout the trip, but the Grand Arbiter really helped me get a bunch of little detail shots from the Schiaparelli exhibit, and I cannot wait to share them with those of you who also love to sew. And I know we'll gossip about it at Costume College, since so many of us are going to that. Christina, I cannot wait to see you at the TSS board retreat and the anniversary tea that's coming up, and at Costume College. Hello! Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you too, my darling. Hello, hello. I'm back. I am like at peak disorganized today, but I wanted to just get back into the swing of things, even though I'm sort of like not really set back up in the workshop. It's not as though things are totally messy and chaotic right now. I did some tidying, as I typically do after a large project, but I've been out of the workshop and I had like one project on the go, and so I have to like remind myself where I am at in that project. I did not want to be doing that live. And hello, it's the Budgie of Chaos. Hello, darling. Look. Okay. If we gossip about sewing, I'm very happy. I love gossiping about sewing. I love answering questions. If all we do is gossip about how much we missed each other tonight, I'm also extremely happy with that. Because the truth is, I did have an extraordinary time. It was a once-in-a-lifetime trip. And there were so many wonderful moments and everything. But the thing that really brought me back was you, our wonderful little community of people, the people I love, and the cats. All right, so Bess asked a great question, and I should have had them here. The capes, how were the capes? The capes were excellent. The capes were such a good idea. The capes worked perfectly. For the first half of the trip, we wore the capes so much. They were my main go-to sort of outdoor apparel. It was cold, it was gray, it was wet. And so that was perfect. It was what we wanted. Everyone was telling us, oh, it's going to be so cold and wet and gray. And the Grand Arbiter and I were like, good. We want that. We want to be cold, wet, and grey. I, because I live here in the desert, and the Grand Arbiter, because he likes that kind of weather. So we were very happy. We looked like little elves running around, getting ready to deliver, quests to different people throughout London town. And so sometimes we would just deliver cryptic compliments to random strangers and then sort of like not literally skip, but sort of sashay away joyfully and leave them with a smile. It's wonderful. The capes really set a tone. They were very comfortable. They were the right level of warmth for the weather. I say the first half of the trip, because the last 5 days when we came back to the UK from Ireland, when we hit Glasgow, a heat wave arrived, and it was a historic heat wave. The temperature had never gotten that warm before in London. So that was fun. I think that people who lived there were very excited for like the sun and the warm weather. But I had to keep explaining to people that I did not pack for that sort of weather. And also I lived in the desert, so I wasn't actually like excited for broiling whilst we were there. But up until that point, we wore the capes like almost every day of the trip, and they were really perfect. They packed beautifully. They did not wrinkle really. They did a good job at protecting us from the rain. We were never in a straight up deluge where it was going to like flood everything. So nothing that was going to get us soaked to the skin. But we were in enough like gentle rain and mist that the capes did a really good job. And Bess, who helped me understand a quick and easy way to flat fell my seams. Thank you, Bess. The flat felling worked perfectly. It looked really good. It did not make the seams too stiff, but it did make them nice and watertight without adding any sort of chemicals, which I looked into. I got good advice from Christina, for instance, on some chemicals you can use to seal your seams, but I didn't have time to test the chemicals to see if they'd leave a stain on the fabric I was using. And I didn't want to stain the project after I'd worked so hard on it. So the Grand Arbiter loved his cape. He's kept his, of course. Mine actually desperately needs to be laundered. So that's my next adventure. I did pre-wash everything before I stitched with it. But I got makeup on my collar, and so I need to launder it. And whilst it's been waiting to be laundered, Monsieur Gatto has decided it is a perfect napping spot. And so he has definitely shed all over it. But it really was a wonderful addition to the entire sort of wardrobe. We did so much green stuff. It was perfect. Oh, thank you, Christina. And thank you for the compliment on my pansy earrings. They're a little covert nod to pride. And thank you for stopping by. It's wonderful to visit with you, even for a little bit. And I know I shall see you very soon. I'm excited to see you. Safe travels home, and good luck on your ongoing adventures. So the capes were an absolute hit. I'm very happy with them. I do want to write up sort of a longer piece on making them, along with all the resources, the pattern number, and all of the things. This pattern, this poor bedraggled Simplicity 8263 is out of print. And so it can be hard to come by. But if you can find it, it's a very flexible pattern, and it makes a great basis for many capes for different cosplays, but also just for regular wearing. Good night, dear Budgie, dear Ty. Take very good care of yourself. It's good to see you here, even for a bit as well. I know it's very late for you, so get some rest, my friend. So yes, 3 cheers for the capes. They were great. As I said, I want to write a little bit about them and that experience. So I have a frock to finish before costume college. There is like a daytime wear frock. It's a mid-century inspired garment from a Gertie pattern that I've been working on. It's my first time doing a Gertie pattern of this variety from beginning to end. I've made some separates by her in the past, but I haven't made a full dress. And so there was a lot of fitting that went into this particular frock. And I think I got the fit right on it. But sometimes you need to wear it a little bit to make certain you really do like the choices you made. So I may do some more fit adjustments for the next one, but it's very close to done. And I had hoped to take it with us to on our grand tour, but really wisdom prevailed, and I knew I needed to like make certain I had other things ready to go, like my packing. So hello, Joanne. Hello, my friend. It's so good to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight. So this is a very, I'd say, disorganized, even for me, Stitch and Twitch. There probably won't be any actual stitching tonight. It's probably going to be mostly chit chat about sewing and projects and planning and fabric and all of those things, as well as gossiping about recent projects and the trip. So one of the things I had hoped to be able to do whilst we were on our trip was go to Liberty of London and maybe snag some William Morris fabric from Liberty. We didn't make it, much to my sorrow, so we have to go back. I had a bad fall when we were in Glasgow, and I'm all right, obviously, but it was very bad, and I really hurt myself, and so it changed the second half, or that last bit of our trip. We had to cancel some things and scale back a bit on our last few days, which I was very sad about. But sometimes that's just the way it happens, right? So nothing's broken, but I was really banged up, and I just couldn't walk as much until I had some healing happen. I had to really baby my leg. So we couldn't go to Liberty. And I thought, I'm not going to get any William Morris fabric while I'm here in England, and I'm very sad about it. I wanted to get a bunch of his famous prints to create our next costume project. And so it didn't happen, but whilst we were at the V&A on our second visit, which happened in these last few days before we left, they were selling a little bit of yardage, pre-cut yardage from the William Morris collection. And really, I only bought 2 meters, and currently I'm just kicking myself a little bit. I should have bought 4 meters. That would have been a lot more flexible, but 2 meters is enough to make it a focal point of a project. It can't be the entirety of the project, but it can be the focal point. And it will, whenever I have these small amounts of fabric that I want to really highlight in a garment, it stretches me in my thinking. And so sometimes it works out really well. But this is the fabric that I picked up. 2 meters is not very much. It's a little bit less than 2 yards, but it's around about the same amount. So you can think about it in those terms. It's a beautiful cotton. And it's one of his sort of very classic prints, and it's very green, and we are in our green era. So I'm excited to figure out a project to go with this fabric. I don't know what that's going to be yet. It's not going to be the next project though, because that one is going to be pink, very pink, a lot of pink, so much pink. Yes, yes. Joanne has got it. A meter is about 39 inches. Oh, so it's slightly more than a yard. Oh, that's good. So I've got like 2.25 yards about. So that's not too bad. It's enough to be doing something with. And it was as much as I felt like we could justify when I didn't have a project for the fabric. So I hated to like spend the luggage space as well as the funds on fabric that I was like, I want it on a whim, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I just love it. So I love this fabric. I'm very excited to sew with it. It's a really beautiful, sumptuous, gorgeous cotton. It's about 44 inches wide, which is a nice width. It's on the narrow side, but not super narrow. And yeah, it's 100% cotton. It's going to be really lovely to work with. So that is one of my treats that I cannot wait to turn into something. But tonight, I need to actually start thinking about my projects for the rest of the year and what that's going to look like. And I realized I spent so much time working on the gorgeous dark academia costume, which still needs some tweaking. It still needs some like little finishing elements. I want to put more trim on the hat. So it's not fully put to bed, but I actually don't have my design for the next big project, which makes it very hard to plan for it. So maybe it was good we didn't go to Liberty of London, since I only had the vaguest idea of what I was going to do at the time. So let me tell you about that vague idea, and then we might do some sketching tonight. And if you have questions about William Morris, why I'm obsessed with his prints and his fabrics, if you want to know more about going to see Schiaparelli, going to the V&A, I am happy to gush about those things because it was wonderful. And even though the historical fashion section of the V&A was under construction for renovation, and so it was closed, I couldn't view it, I got to see so much other wonderful fashion whilst I was there. And I was really inspired. So one of the things about Schiaparelli is that she has a real like insouciance to her design. She's got a sense of humor about how she approaches things. And I love that. And sometimes I feel like I capture that mood in our costumes, so the Grand Arbiter and I, but I tend to lean very far into like an elevated experience, elegance and lavishness and flamboyance, frankly. And I rely then on our presentation and our carriage and the way we behave in our clothes to sell the comedy of the whole experience. And I also like that little bit of interesting tension between our humor and the clothes we're wearing, because they look like we should be very serious people who are like too. And instead, I think we come off a bit, and maybe I'm wrong, you tell me, but I always feel like we come off extremely cheeky and a little bit like we forgot we dressed up for the fancy ball. And I love that. I love that sort of dichotomy, that juxtaposition. So we're in a phase, I'm going to be a little bit coy, admittedly, but we're in a phase where we are going to be time traveling to some different eras. We're not leaving behind our wonderful 19th century. We love it here. But we are also going to be time traveling to some different eras. And my goodness, that's going to be really, really fun. But also, it means I need to experiment with some things. And next year, especially, we're going to have a fair amount of time travel elsewhere. So, my darlings, I'm going to be experimenting more with the Gertie pattern that I've been working on. I'm sort of turning it into my new pattern block for a kind of mid-century look. And you know, I can there's a bunch I cannot share because it's not official and formal, but I'm excited that we have some fun new adventures coming for next year. But we are going back to the wonderful Con Possible in February in Atlanta. And they are doing a very time travel focused theme next year that is very much an homage to the TVA from the Loki show on Disney Plus. And I say an homage because it is not branded as the TVA, but it's inspired by. And I really was. I loved that show. I thought it had some wonderful costuming. I really liked the way they took that sort of 1950s, 1960s corporate, bureaucratic kind of fashion and added a little bit of like science fiction to it and a little bit of humor to things, whilst clearly keeping those silhouettes. And so I want to do something for the wonderful that wonderful theme and for the show, because we love that show. And I thought it'd be really fun to bring something a little different. Of course, I'll still be bringing, big bustle fashion because I love bustles and I cannot lie. And I really love a corset for lots of reasons. But one of those is that when I'm tired, it keeps me upright. And when my costumes are heavy, it supports the weight. So that's very nice. And I might be making like a little mid-century corset, a sort of waist cincher, if you will, to go with some of these things for the purposes of holding the costume, holding it in place, giving it a good silhouette, but holding the petticoats, the skirts, all of the weight of the costume, and for keeping me upright when I'm tired. So I might be experimenting a little bit in that regard. And you know what? Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, my darling Cheshire, I do feel that my bustle brings all the suitors to the yard, every gender. So I love that. Yes, I will always want to bustle. I just love that silhouette, but it's fun to experiment a little bit. So originally, I was going to do this thing for Worldcon, not this year, but last year. Oh my gosh, yes. And Beth says, a waist cincher is a great idea for mid-century fashion. Oh my God, yes. So look, I got in, I'm going to like finish a thought at a time. Let's stick with the waist cincher for a moment. So I got into the depths of creating my frock based off the Gertie pattern. And look, the pattern is so great. And it's this one, just to give you a little preview. It's such a great pattern. I have literally no notes except to say it's great. The instructions are so good. The ability to adjust your fit is so good. And the style lines are great. So I do love them. And the one I just made, or I'm almost done making, I'm boning the bodice, so I don't need a waist cincher with it. I'm just building essentially a very light little corset sort of situation into the garment. And that's fine. I have the skills to do that, and I also have everything I need on hand to do that. But you know the nice thing about having a waist cincher, a little corset to go under your frock, is that you don't have to bone every garment. Or if you do, you can bone just a few strategic seams to like help them keep a nice smooth silhouette. But your corset is doing the heavy lifting there. And it's just more efficient, therefore, to have the corset. So I like efficiency. And I like ease over the long haul. I love this. Bess says they had pages of them in the catalogs. Yes. So historically, very funny. Historically, the corset has never gone away. I remember hearing in the mid 1990s, the early aughties of the 21st century, that the corset had all but vanished. No, it's just got renamed. It just transformed. It's been transforming as a garment for centuries, but it's existed for a long time for a reason, and it continues to exist for reasons. And a lot of that is function. Some of it is also just fashion and how people like them. Beth says, oh, this is good to know. Beth says, Gertie has a pattern for a waist cincher that looks to be like an underbust corset, but with power net side panels, still couture and boning, but with stretched sides. Intriguing. Oh, intriguing indeed, Bess. So I have not worked with power mesh very much at all, although I know exactly where to get some. Sarah, who TAs my corset making classes, has worked with power mesh quite a bit because she's a figure skater, and so she's needed to use it in figure skating costumes, and she uses it to this day in some of her cosplays. What I tend to use, as those of you who've taken classes with me know, is I like to put bobinette side panels in these days because it makes my corset lighter and more breathable. Now, there's something to be said for a little ability to have some stretch in your corset. It probably adds a little bit of wearability and also movement to your garment. And certainly by the 1940s, well, frankly, by the late 19th century, there was elasticized fabric. They did not necessarily use it in corsets, but they did use it in some different settings like footwear. But by the 1920s, we were getting girdles and all sorts of things that are an evolution of the corset that go a little bit further down on the body to like shape more of the leg and to give more of a gamine silhouette to people. And so when things like girdles that affected more of your stride got longer and had more of an impact on your ability to sit, to walk, you see more stretch come into play. By the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, the girdles all have some power mesh involved or some sort of stretch fabric involved, as well as panels that are not stretch. So that seems really like on keeping with what was happening historically, and very practical, I'm certain. Now, I will tell you, since we're on the topic, my grandmama was not a time traveler. I'm the time traveler. My grandmama lived through the end of the Edwardian era and into the 1940s, 50s, 60s, into the mid-century. And she told me about the adventures in wearing girdles and the changing fabrics. And I always find it very amusing when people ask me about the discomfort of corsets or talk about how corsets are a garment of oppression and how terribly, terribly uncomfortable they are. Usually this is inspired by coming out of a sort of, urban myths and legends about corsetry and some talking points. Some of them very valid about the weight of women's clothes and the way that there was like a double standard in what AFAB people were expected to wear and what, men could get away with. But corsets were also a deeply functional garment. And so they were not objects of oppression any more than any other garment is an object of oppression. It's all about context and how a thing is used. But coming into the 1950s and the 1960s, my grandmama talked about the way in which girdles were increasingly made with this rubberized, elasticized fabric that did a great job of smoothing everything out and holding everything in. But the other thing it did, and this is the horrible part, so it's a little bit of body horror, so you may want to cover your ears. The other horrible thing they did was they really held in the moisture when you perspired. It didn't go anywhere. And if you wore your girdle long enough, often enough, it would start to break down your skin, and your skin would start to rot a little bit under the girdle. And I always think about that when I think about girdles. They have their place. If you are doing a certain silhouette in a certain era of fashion and you want to really have all of the underpinnings that are going to support that silhouette, you are going to get to a period in time and a silhouette that girdle is pretty important to the look. Nothing is ever essential, but if you want to really hone in on that silhouette, you will probably find yourself lured by the siren song of a girdle. The thing I love about the modern interpretations of historical girdles is that none of them are made with this kind of all over rubber power stretch fabric. So yay for power mesh, yay for breathable fabrics, fie on that nonsense. And so Cheshire says they have their place in the garbage. What do you mean rot? That's how you get zombies. It was the 1950s and the 1960s. They were doing a lot of horrible things. They're very dodgy things. They had not learned a lot of lessons yet from the Victorians. They did not put safety first. They did put asbestos in many, many things. They also like to put radium, in the watch faces. They we're doing a bunch of dodgy nonsense, and we could get into it with the way in which women were medicated at that period. That's a very dark topic. But yes, how were there not more zombies from the 1950s and 60s? Because really, these girdles, a nightmare. So I have, of course, or maybe not, of course, but I have worn a girdle a few times for some time traveling purposes. And I really, really eschew any fashion that sort of like needs a girdle to support it. I just the thing I find uncomfortable, the thing I find hard to wear personally, as a person who's worn corsets and stays and a pair of bodies and bustles and hoop skirts and crinolines and all sorts of wild underpinnings, the thing I find really hard to wear is a girdle. I find them very restrictive. I dislike how they affect my gait, and they might smooth you out, but also I don't want to eat in one either. So I'm not saying they're bad or you shouldn't do them, but I am saying personal preference. I avoid them like the plague. So yes, Cheshire has gotten to the heart of the matter. My goodness, that prescription for hysteria and other things at that time of history was wild. So now that I've gone on this like rant tangent about girdles and historical fashion, I hope no one feels that I'm telling you can't do a girdle. But this is sort of my like warning: don't make your girdles out of rubberized fabric. It's a bad time. So that's it. I like the fit and flare silhouette because even though historically they were probably wearing girdles under their fit and flare garments because girdles were considered a sort of like necessity, you don't have to have one underneath the fit and flare garment in order to like support the silhouette. You need petticoats, and I'm here every day, all day for petticoats. I love a petticoat. So petticoats are no problem for me. And a waist cincher, I think, is going to be a really critical addition to the wardrobe. So that is something I believe is coming in my near future. And maybe there will be a workshop based around that. I don't know. I haven't decided about what the corset workshop is going to be this year. Free the hips, Bess. Yes, free the hips. I have mighty hips. These hips cannot be contained. They do not lie, and they cannot be contained. That's why I have to put a bustle on them or panniers. Sometimes I just need to make my hips even larger and more emphatic. So we are freeing the hips. Absolutely freeing them. So to go back, sort of circular conversation that we're having, to go back, last year, I wanted to make something special for Worldcon. Turns out I'd made the dragon costume. That was probably special enough. I mean, I won an award. That seems to have worked out very well for me. No complaints. I had a great time. It was amazing. I can't go to Worldcon this year because I'm going to costume college. Do not cry for me. I'm having a great time. I cannot wait to go to costume college, and I'm so excited for everyone who's going to be there. But I still have this like Worldcon concept that I had worked on. And so the thing is, Worldcon was like a retro future theme because the World's Fair had happened there in the 1960s, and the last Worldcon that had been in Seattle had been in the 1960s. It was like they were really doing a callback. And so, oh my gosh. Bess says, there's so much more room for hips under large skirts. Bodycon has its place, but big skirts win 98% of the time. Yes. Bess, I agree 100%. So, that's why I'm like, give me those big skirts. I love the big skirts. And I've worked up, this pattern. I've done a lot of fit checks on this. I've done a lot of fit adjustments on this. I may have to do more. I think I got it pretty good. But again, sometimes I need to wear a thing to like be certain that I'm happy with what I did. But I've got this is beautiful fit and flare silhouette, great big skirts. will look beautiful with petticoats underneath. So I wanted a retro future 1960s, 1950s kind of vibe. And I was like, the Jetsons, but make it gay. So, can you see some of the gay elements that are happening in this frock? And some of the bisexual pride flag elements that are happening in this frock. Because the color story is very much a key element of, selling that story. And I thought, this is kind of fun. And I think I can adapt that Gertie pattern to give me roughly this look for myself. So this is a thing I'm hoping to make for next year at some point. And then, oh, thank you. Thank you. This is great. Oh my gosh. 10 out of 10 would buy again. Thank you so much. I love it. Thank you, Bess. Thank you very much. I am like very keen on this design. The other thing I love about it is I can probably make it entirely out of cotton. So it will be, look, I love sewing with silk from Silk Baron. I'm not going to lie. It's glorious fabric. The colors are incredible. I feel like it elevates my costumes always, and they are wonderful people to work with. So look, I love them, but I cannot only have silk frocks because I live in a place where it gets up to 118, 120 degrees Fahrenheit, which like my friends who live in Europe and use the metric system, that is like 50 degrees Celsius. So it gets very hot. And when it is very hot, silk is the wrong fabric. Silk is a wonderful insulator, but there comes a point when it is too warm. So I am excited to be designing some things that can be made out of cotton or linen, some very breathable fabrics, and to include some of those, especially because I have this secret that I cannot share with you about some of our possible good news for next year, which I will not probably be able to share until like November or December. So it's a very long time out. Sorry to be like teasing you about it. I'm just very excited. I hate to keep a secret, but also I have to plan for this thing. So anyway, since I know I'm doing this thing and it's going to be in a hotter part of the year, I'm like, oh, well, I need to be planning for that. So, but also it is usually not that warm in Atlanta in February, to be honest. It's usually a bit brisk outdoors, but inside the hotel, we have been very warm the last few times, sometimes exceedingly warm, but very warm in our big frocks. And so I want to have some looks, especially like for the daytime, that are a little bit cooler. So when we're swanning about and we're presenting tea dueling and we're doing teapot racing and we're doing all these high energy things in which we're already going to get very warmed up, that I have some options that are a little bit cooler to wear. So I say that for myself, and mine is like clearly breezy, summery, great. This is what I designed for the Grand Arbiter. And so I plan to make him a jacket, a little sort of moto style jacket, also probably out of cotton, and keep all of this very cotton. But I think I've convinced him to wear a bell bottom, which I never thought I would do. And also I never thought I would try to do. It is like 1970s jumpsuit vibes. It's supposed to hearken to some of the sci-fi shows from the 1970s where they were certain that a jumpsuit was the way. But yeah, so it's like a moto jacket, but I wanted it to feel jumpsuit, even though it's two-piece. I find that two-piece is more comfortable to wear. than a jumpsuit. So my idea was that the trousers would be made out of the same fabric as the moto jacket, and so it would look very unified. Have this belt here, or have this bottom of the moto jacket that looks like a belt. We're not there yet. It's just a sketch. So that it looks very unified and like it has a belt. And can you see, again, the pride elements and also the men-loving men pride flag elements? And yes, Greece meets crease. Oh, thank you, Cheshire. That's so good. Thank you, Joanne. It is, I feel like it is far out. I was thinking like, Buck Rogers and things like that from the 1970s, and all of their jumpsuits. So, and I agree. Cheshire is winning the comments today. Thank you, Cheshire, for being peak funny. Really appreciate it. So, and it's good to laugh. So that is something I'm hoping to build for next year and also use as a bit of a template for making a couple of things. So I expect there's going to be some big skirts, some fit and flare, and a little bit of like mid-century vibes for next year, which is very exciting. It's a real branching out from what we normally do and from the eras we normally time travel to. And I'm excited to do that. I'm also, if you can tell, I'm a little nervous about it because I haven't time traveled much to the 1950s and 1960s in quite a long time. I've been before, obviously, because I've time traveled all over the place. I've time traveled to the Tudor court. I've visited the Italian Renaissance, and I spent some time in my checkered youth swing dancing a great deal. And you have to have a fabulous wardrobe if you're going to be swing dancing. So, I've popped around to many decades and centuries. I haven't been back to this era in a long time. So it's going to be fun. And I've been having a really good time with, my Gertie frock. I cannot wait to have it finished so I can photograph it and show you how it turned out and talk about the slings and arrows of my own personal decisions. I want to be very clear, and I will clarify this when I'm writing about it. Any problems I had were based on decisions I made. Gertie's instructions are really good. Her patterns are really good. And I've heard from everyone who is part of her Patreon that it is exceptional. I can only aspire to her level of teaching and her level of craftsmanship. She's extraordinary sewist and an even better designer. So I have mad respect for her. And I have loved working with her pattern, but I definitely made some choices that felt good to me at the time, that worked for me given my timeline and the materials I had on hand, that meant that some things were a little harder than they might have otherwise been. And some things were easier because I just happened to have all of this corsetry, the corsetry supplies and tools just on hand, and I know how to use them. So I do think the next time I make one, if I decide to build in an internal corset to the garment, or if I ever do that again on a fit and flare mid-century frock, I will probably use some bobinette. I used cotton organdy, and because it's lightweight and it's strong. But the bobinette is even more breathable. And I think that this frock is going to have some warmth problems around the torso because of some of the decisions I made. And it also got bulky in some places because of the thickness of the fabrics I was using. And so it was hard for me to grade down the seams enough to make it like not bulky in those places and to get it to fit in properly. So I had some trickiness in the final stitching, and it was places where she warned you that it might be tricky stitching here and you needed to watch out for bulkiness. And then I had, you know, made those areas more bulky because of the decisions I'd made. And I was like, oh, well, lessons learned. So, but I'm excited. I'm excited to do these sort of like space gaze costumes. The gay Jetsons, I'm sure we'll come up with some cute portmanteau for it. So I'm very excited. I will probably ask someone to make the trousers because I hate making trousers, to be honest. It's a personal failing. I hate making them. Oh, Queer, the final frontier. Cheshire really is on fire with the comments. That's it. Oh my God. So I'm excited for that one. But what about the pink costume? I've been like dancing around this and hinting at it and talking about what it you know, some of the vibes. And then I like went off on all of these different tangents and we talked about, you know, the travel and the museum and fabric buying and patterns and designing for other eras. So let's talk about it, because the pink costume is going to be part of our 19th century experience. It is going to, my frock at least, is going to be based on a bustle dress. The Grand Arbiters, I'm actually going to take him a little bit more Georgian with this one. I'm excited. I think I'm going to make him a coat, everyone. I think the Grand Arbiter will continue to get capes because he loves them. But I think we're entering the coat era. And to be honest, the Arbiter has longed for coats. For beautiful, you know, jackets and coats to go with his costumes for at least a decade. He's been asking me for one for a long time. And I've mucked about with it, and I was working towards making him one in the early part of 2020. And then we know what happened. We know what happened in 2020, and suddenly I couldn't see him for fittings, and everything went to 6s and 7s, and you know, there we are. And oh, thank you. Beth says, I love an 18th century long coat. Look, the coats are so good. They are so good, and the Grand Arbiter's fashion has always been a little bit more Georgian inspired. So I've always been pulling from like the 18 teens, the 1820s, maybe the 1790s for his Westkits. His first one was directly from like late 18th century, early 19th century pattern, and that sort of set the tone. He looks really good in it. And I also think that Georgian era, the dandies were on fire with their fashion. There's so much for them to work with, and so much lace, and so many opportunities for froth and furbelows. And I love that. I love that fashion. But more than that, my dearest best friend in the universe loves that fashion. He's very into like the lace. He loves more flamboyance. He wants more like surface design on his costumes. And that like Georgian era costuming really lends itself to it just by virtue of how the garments are constructed. And we like toy around with making the 19th century things more elaborate. So, oh, hello. Hello, my friends. So core costuming, and is this Danielle? Daniela, it's so good to see you. If it is, says I would love for it to be a velvet coat. I think at some point the Grand Arbiter will get a velvet coat. This one may not be velvet because it's going to be my first one. And so I think I want to make it out of a more forgiving fabric the first time so I can like get a feel for it and also, you know, work on all of the like fussy bits with something that is going to give me a little bit of latitude. And I want it to be like something lightweight and summery. So the first one I don't think will be velvet, but I have to tell you, he would love a velvet coat. We did a velvet, well, we commissioned a velvet tailcoat for him for the black and gold costume a million years ago. And he loved that coat. It was so good. And he looked fierce in it. It was beautiful. And you know, I still have some of that velvet left. I used a tiny, tiny amount of it in the Dark Academia costume. But this is the famous silk velvet that I got for like $13 a yard in the fashion district because we paid cash and we were buying the entire bolt at the end of the day and they were ready to sell it to us and we struck a deal. I have never been that successful making a deal at a fabric store ever before or since. It was just an extraordinary moment. So I do have some of that. It's beautiful. It has a lustrous hand to it. It's not the most like, there's definitely qualities of silk velvet out there too. So it's not the most apex of silk velvet, but it still has this sheen to it and this beautiful woody drape to it that's a bear to work with, to be honest. But it looks great when it's all together and done. Actually, I have an example of it. This is a piece that did not make it onto the costume. From the Dark Academia costume. It was meant to go on, but when I started sewing things together and I laid out the trim elements, I realized that I had that I am too short and that I had to cut down on the trim. So the thing I did, which was a trick I got from another historical costumer. So the thing I did to make the velvet a little bit more manageable, especially for these very precision little pieces that are so small, I actually fused it to some woven cotton fusible interfacing, which gave it more stability and a little bit more body. It was tricky to fuse, to be honest, but it did make the pieces much easier to work with. It was a lot of setup to get here. And you can see I actually did still have to do a lot of basting on this. So before I went in and pressed my tab, everything was basted. Like these tabs, these glorious, wonderful tabs that I put on our costumes were very labor intensive little pieces, but I love them and I think they were really good elements. Danielle says maybe you'll get lucky again if you get some shopping in at Coco. Yeah, no, and look, also not only can you be lucky if you go to the fashion district while you're there at costume college, but they have, of course, the vendor hall, which has some wonderful things in it. Sometimes some real like treasures show up. I mean, usually. And they have the bargain basement. And if you have the wherewithal and you get up early and you line up early and you hit it early, the bargain basement can render some truly exquisite fabric because people hoard all sorts of things. I mean, at some point, not now, not this year, probably not next year, but at some point, I will probably be giving that silk velvet to somebody to use, because I will have used it as much as I wish. Hello, monsieur. Hello. Hi, darling. Yes. So, things like that, or silk you have that you used a bit of it, but you didn't use all of it, and you feel like you're not going to use it anymore. There are all sorts of reasons why people pass on things, and really fabulous things end up in the bargain basement, and the prices are true bargains. And those funds go to help supporting, their scholarships and things. So it's like worthwhile to go, and you're doing something good, and you might get a treasure. So that's lovely. I wasn't able to go the last time, partly because I just could not get up early enough to make it. And you do have, at least in the past, you had to line up rather early in order to get a good place in line. Yes, this is so good. Joanne says they take donations for the bargain basement, and since they are 501c3, they will give you a receipt for tax deduction, which you know what, that's not nothing. That's a nice thing to get as a sewist, right? Because even inexpensive fabric is not inexpensive, and we buy a lot of it. And sometimes you just have to add to the hoard, and you hope you're going to use it. And then you discover it wasn't meant to be, or something happened. I have this really gorgeous red and black striped rayon fabric. It's so beautiful. I love it. We were going to do this whole gothic thing that I was very excited about. And we had a plan, we had a design. It was for a certain show that was going to be happening in 2020. There are a lot of things that went by the wayside in 2020. And so I never made that project, and we've moved on. We've been doing other things, and I just haven't come back to that design, and it hasn't felt like something I've wanted to make lately. And so that fabric languishes, and I haven't wanted to part with it yet, because maybe I will want to make that design. Maybe we'll come back to it. I have like 6 or 8 yards of this fabric. I have enough to be doing quite a bit of gorgeous things with it. But it's very particular because it's rayon, so it's like slinky. It has this gorgeous stripe to it. So if I never do something with it, it might be a thing that ends up in the bargain basement, for instance. And it's nice to find a home for like 6 or 8 yards of fabric that is very particular, and then see someone else make a gorgeous thing out of it that they're very happy with. So I love that the bargain basement exists, and I love that Costume College has this, commitment to having scholarships and being a nonprofit. I will say I haven't really sung the praises of Costume College in a while, because I've been gone, and I was like getting ready for the trip to Europe. But it is an extraordinary event. If you do costuming at any level, if you love the costume arts, if you are a beginner or intermediate, advanced, truly everyone can find something there. But one of the best things you can find there is community, a community of costumers. I love that when we show up at this event, the really weird little details that we put into our sewing, those are things that somebody at Costume College will notice and compliment, and they know what you're talking about. So Rainbow Phoenix, hello, my darling, says, what's this about scholarships? So the scholarship period is closed for this year's Costume College, but they have all the information on their website, and you basically everyone is welcome to apply. You can fill out, there's like an essay portion, and I don't know if there's also like recommendations or anything like that, but it is something that I really encourage anyone who's interested in attending, especially for your first time, to go for the scholarship. Like, give it a go, especially if you have a financial need. If you're like, I cannot go to costume college. Okay, so this is all right. So Joanne knows the way. You need a recommendation from a CGW member. So that's Costumers Guild West. They are the people who put it on. And if you are part of our Discords, then you've probably met some CGW members. I know I, for instance, am a member of the CGW. Yes, okay, yes. Beth says, but also it's coming up so soon. I'm not ready. Okay, look, let's talk about it. I also don't feel ready. I had a wonderful time on my trip, and I definitely got some inspiration. But I am creating a whole brand new panel for Costume College this year, and I need to spend some time on my research and put my slides together. And so I've got that, but I also need to finish this frock I was just talking about, the Gertie frock that's like so close to being done. And I think I'm making a really over-the-top caftan for Thursday night. If I don't make a new caftan, I am making a very Mucha-inspired floral headdress to go with it, because spoiler alert, which is not really a spoiler, because if you're in the Discord, we've been talking about it, but our plan collectively as the temporal entourage, as the whole like steampunk community, is that we're going to show up in caftans Thursday night for the social and like do sort of a Mucha inspired caftan situation. I'm very excited, and I'm like, I have caftans. I don't need to make a new caftan, but I just want to make one that looks more like it's coming out of that Art Nouveau Mucha poster world, and to go with my floral headdress. And I know why I'm like this, but also why am I like this? Fortunately, caftans are very easy to make, so that's the good news. Rainbow Phoenix says, I'm pretty economically unstable, so I will need to look into that for next year regarding the scholarships for Costume College. You absolutely should look into it for next year. You should plan ahead. You'll need to be on top of it because they close the application window fairly early, so they have time to like review the applications and make a decision. But they really encourage people to apply. I encourage people to apply. Also, yes, thank you. I do have a very swishy ponytail tonight. And also I'm doing a ponytail tonight, which is not a style I do very often. But here's the thing, darlings. I'm time traveling all over the place. And that means, I made it to the mid-century, and there are a lot of ponytail wearing then, and it is blazingly hot. And I know this is the terrible thing. It's blazingly hot compared to England and Ireland and Scotland, but it's not blazingly hot yet. For here, it's going to get so much hotter, and I know it's coming. So I'm just living a lot of ponytail life, and I got a new haircut before we left for Angleterre, and it's very conducive to a swishy ponytail. So there we are. I do have a very swishy ponytail. And Joanne says about Costume College, some of the scholarships include hotel room, which is wonderful. So it is worthwhile to apply. You don't know until you've done it. And the worst they can say is no. But if you don't apply, they'll definitely say no. So you should apply. And you should try and come, because I feel like I go to Costume College and I walk out inspired, reconnected with my community, validated in my work, and I always learn something too. And that's such a great feeling. And I get to give back by teaching. I know this sounds impossibly twee, but I love teaching so much. And there's something wonderful about being at an event that so specifically caters to people who are invested in the costume arts and is so focused on education. So this is not like going to a fandom convention where 90% of your time might be spent in the vendor hall, or 50% and 50% at, panels, or like you're going to go to signings and things, or get photo ops with people. There are no photo ops with famous people. We're all getting our photos taken. So beautiful. Great photographer on hand, on site. And then, I at least make a point of taking everyone's photo that comes within my range. There is a vendor hall. It's small and curated, and it is focused on things you might want as a costumer. So there are patterns there. There are hats there. There are fabrics there. There are accessories and notions and things that you would use in your historical costuming. It's really beautiful vendor room. Usually my favorite corset supplier, Richard the Thread, is there. Usually Silk Baron is there. Usually Truly Victorian is there. The last time we went, period corsets were there. I highly recommend period corsets if you don't want to make your own. They make beautiful corsets. They're really stunning. And I know not everyone wants to make their own corsets, so it's good to be able to point people at a company that I really believe in their quality of work. Yeah, and it's a beautiful experience in terms of, like, it is a conference for the dedicated costumer. It's lovely. I adore it. And it's been on a journey, the Costume College community and experience, of becoming increasingly welcoming and increasingly affirming and diverse. And the last time we were there, I saw more young people than I'd ever seen. I saw more men than I'd ever seen. I saw more non-binary people than I'd ever seen. And that was wonderful. The queer community is growing there. People of color are more represented. And I really appreciate those efforts, because it's important to me to be in a community that is diverse. I think that makes for a better community. It makes me a better person, very selfishly, but I do feel like being amongst my peers, but peers from diverse backgrounds, challenges me to find the best in myself. And I am always really grateful for that opportunity. But also, I want more perspectives. I want other people's knowledge and information on costuming, and I want people to feel welcome in those spaces. And so I love that Costume College is trying really hard to make that happen. So this is my paean to Costume College, an organization, an event that I love dearly. So, right, but to come back to like designing, maybe I'm not going to get any sketching done tonight, which is fine. So here's the pitch for the pink ensemble that is going to be sort of late 18th, early 19th century for the Grand Arbiter, and like another bustle extravaganza for me. It's got to be pink. So keep in mind, pink is the hero color of this adventure. But the idea is to like make it a queer garden party that like is inspired by the gardens at Versailles and inspired by the French courts of the 18th century without being like French court costumes. Now, I say this because I love French court costumes, but I actually I don't want to have to pack one. They're huge. They're huge, and the panniers are huge, and I want this to be something that I can pack in my traveling trunks. And so for me, I'm keeping it to my typical silhouette, and I'm looking at the ways in which the Victorians from the 19th century, especially like the 1870s, were really like, they were inspired by the past too. So this is something I love about fashion and fashion history. We have all these moments, and we're very like meta about so much these days. And we talk about fashion in these very like meta ways. And we're very, we look at the sort of cyclical nature of fashion and the ways in which we reference and pull from the past in our modern fashion. So currently, the 90s, the 1990s are very in with the young people. It's vintage. I have to sit with that every time. It's vintage. And the young people are bringing back their interpretation of the 1990s. Now, if you lived through the 1990s, if you were born in the 1980s, you were a teenager in the 1990s, you really remember fashion in a particular way. If you were born in the 1970s and you lived through the 80s and 90s, you were like a young adult in the 1990s. Again, the fashion was a different experience for you. You have your own lens through which you view it, having lived through it. But the young people looking at things like advertisements and the photos of high fashion and music videos and all of these artifacts of the 1990s fashions, that they are being shown and sold today as sort of like a remembrance and a reimagining of that fashion. They have a very particular lens, and it is filtered. It is not exactly what we experienced in the 1990s. Totally fine. And it's interesting to see what their perspective is and what they take from it and what that says about them and how they view the 1990s. When I was younger, of a certain age, I remember there was a revival, love of like 1940s and 1950s fashion that came on. And I know that people who were into that revival were into certain aspects of the 1940s and 50s, not the entirety of that fashion. If you showed them everything that was worn then, there are many things people would be like, wore that? Then I thought they only wore like fit and flare dresses and penny loafers and poodle skirts. Obviously not the case, but that was still the thing that was inspiring a lot of people. So that was what was influencing this sort of like reimagining of that fashion. So all of that said, in the 19th century, they would do a lot of fashion inspired by the past. Sometimes they do things inspired by their view of what the Greeks were wearing. It was like very naturalistic, chignons and these like beautiful soft cotton dresses that were all the rage in like the 1790s, 18 teens, especially in France under Napoleon, that were inspired by Grecian fashion. They weren't Greek fashion, but they were inspired by the statuary and the things and the ways in which the contemporary people envisioned that. So this is very long sort of monologue, little bit of a fashion history lesson wrapped in one. In the 1870s, there was an obsession with the 18th century, with the French court, with these pastoral French gowns, with chintz prints. And so the Polonaise became all the rage in Victorian fashion in the 1870s. And so I'm intending to create a Polonaise fashion for myself. Oh yes, Bess is on it. Okay, Bess is picking up what I'm putting down. Pink and pastel, 18th century trims placed in 19th century placements, yes. Or a faux stomacher with square neckline and 19th century trims. So many options. Yes, yes, Bess. Yes. Okay, all right. Yes, the Dolly Varden style. Thank you, Danielle. So Danielle is like picking up exactly, you are both on the same page with me. This this craze for 18th century dress in the 1870s. And I am obsessed with this kind of like referential nature of fashion. And I find it like extra meta and interesting for me, a time traveler, to be who has lived all over the place. I'm 50,000 years old. I've seen a lot. I've done a lot. I've been to a lot of places. I've time traveled quite a bit. It's intense. But so I'm going to look at this 1870s craze for 18th century fashion and put it through the blender of my imagination. So exciting. And then I'm going to do a similar thing to the Grand Arbiter. So right now what I'm thinking is to do sort of 1870s silhouettes, use a Polonaise. I don't know if I'm going to do a faux stomacher yet, but I am thinking about that depending on the fabric and everything. And to do 18th century trims in 19th century placements is sort of my vibe for my dress. And I think I'm going to make the Polonaise part of the dress out of a floral fabric that is predominantly pink. And my dream, and this is a terrible dream because it probably will not come to pass unless I create the fabric myself. And that's a terrible idea, but don't put it past me, to be honest. But I dream of doing a pink and green pastel striped foundation skirt to go with this. I love stripes, and I really want to have like some beautiful furbelows out of this striped fabric, to do some ruching, to do all of these like gathered ridiculous curlicue fabrics around my frock. And I probably won't do proper engagements, which are the lace frills from the sleeve, because I drink too much tea and I will drag my lace frills through my teacup, and then all of my lace will be dyed tea color. I know myself. So, but who knows? I might change my mind. I'm like still working on the kind of design. Okay. Oh, Bess. So Bess says, what about an 18th century floral pattern cotton print? Bess, are you reading my mind? So, okay, listen. I have some options. So originally I was like, oh, I'm going to go with like a William Morris pink cotton print, a pink floral cotton print by William Morris. I'm going to pull in the Art Nouveau arts and crafts that I love so much into this Polonaise. The arts and crafts Art Nouveau took a lot of inspiration from Indian cotton block prints. The 18th century used a lot of Indian cotton prints in their fashion. Do you see where I'm going? So I was like, oh, this will be like kind of weird and referential and sort of fun and a little bit heady and very nerdy. Also, thank you. Self-knowledge is important. I do know myself, and I must say that, oh, hi, baby. Okay. All right. Look, this is where we're at. If I had been planning to sketch, it is not happening now. Monsieur Gatto is definitely going to help. Hi, baby. I know, I missed you too. So, there are a few places here in the United States. Renaissance Fabrics is one great source for finding some beautiful cotton prints that are like sort of taken from the 18th century. There's also, oh no, oh my gosh, I cannot believe they just went out of my head. Oh God. Oh no! There are a couple of companies out of the East Coast that really are favorites of the 18th century costuming set. And I cannot remember their names right now, but I can look there and look at their cotton prints and see if I see something pink that I like that would work. But I've also been looking at Indian cotton block prints that have a lovely Burnley and Trowbridge. My God, Bess, you are psychic. That is the one. Thank you so much. You absolutely read my mind. That was amazing. B&T, Danielle, also, okay. Thank you very much for picking up what I was putting down. I was like, oh my gosh, their names. And Beth says, and the Colonial Williamsburg repro fabrics. Yes. So that is an option. And then I can have this like 18th century fabric styled in a 19th century way. Very fun. A strong contender, big possibility. But I'm also looking at these Indian cotton block prints. Now, they're not necessarily historical, although I found a place that purports to do historical methods of their block prints. I'm checking them out. I'm reviewing them. That is also an option. So far, every bit of like scouring the internet I've done, it looks like they're on the up and up. They have good reviews. I don't know anyone who shops from them, which is why I'm being like extra careful. Sometimes you can find great things that are evocative of the 18th century on places like Denver Fabrics or, oh my God, you're so cute. Or even, Mood Fabrics and things like that. And so I keep an eye out there as well. I'm also going to costume college, and heavens knows I might find the perfect thing there. I need scads. I'm going to need at least 6 to 8 yards of this floral print because I'll want to do my polonaise, and I will either do the coat for the Grand Arbiter out of the floral, strong possibility, or the waistcoat and do a stripe for his coat. I have to make decisions. Very hard. So this is like kind of the vibe I'm going for. And also, may I say, I really appreciate that you all immediately were like, oh, we're putting together the puzzles pieces that you are throwing out on the table. Thank you. Beth says the Colonial Williamsburg birds in fleur might be a good look. Ooh. All right, birds and flowers. That's very solid. I'm going to have to look at it and then possibly pull out my smelling salts depending on the price per yard. So, yeah, but I do think it would be really nice to have something in cotton. To be honest, you can tell that I lean a certain direction because I usually love stripes, checks, tartans, very like geometric kind of fabrics. And the Grand Arbiter is wild for floral prints. And he loves doing a floral. And we haven't done one in a while. Now, occasionally, I find a floral print that I absolutely fall head over heels in love with. And I realized that usually those floral prints happen to be in the Indian block print, arts and crafts, William Morris, realm of things. And so I'm like, I have a flavor of floral print. That flavor is not 1980s and not Laura Ashley. Bless her heart. There's nothing wrong with Laura Ashley or the 1980s. Well, fashion wise, there were things that were wrong with the 1980s, please, please. There were things that were very wrong with the 1980s. But fashion wise, there were some fun moments. But I definitely hearken to a certain flavor of floral, and that is a good thing for me to know about my taste. Beth says this cotton is $18 a yard for 44-inch wide. That's not terrible for a historical reproduction fabric. Actually, cheaper than silk. So, yeah, possible a feasible cost, a feasible budget number. That's nice. And probably it's not coming from overseas, so there probably won't be tariffs. So that's also nice. Or if they are, they're included in the price. Also nice. Things we have to keep in mind right now when we are plotting our fabric purchases. So, yes, darlings, I have mad ideas. I have no sketches because now Monsieur Gâteau, as you can see, has fallen asleep on my arms. I've done no stitching, but we've done some excellent plotting for which I am deeply grateful. And we've had a very rambling conversation about costume history and the way in which we reimagine the past through the present lens of fashion. I really love that. So I'm going to wrap up a little bit by returning to Schiaparelli, which I will be talking about possibly forever. It was one of the most extraordinary exhibits I've ever gotten to see. And to see her fashion up close, to look at the construction up close, was phenomenal. To see some of the fun, clever ways she made things happen really excited me. And she went through a period of her fashion in which she was referencing bustle dresses, my darlings, for reals, for really reals. And so there were all these frocks that had these bustly bits happening to them. And it was so interesting to see how this woman in the 1930s, 1940s was reimagining bustle dresses. Now, keep in mind, bustle fashion had sort of ended in the 1880s. So we're talking about 50 years prior, 40 years prior, fashion that was not that long ago. It's sort of the same amount of time between now and the 1990s and the 1980s. And I love that Schiaparelli was like, oh, yeah, no, my grandmother wore bustle dresses. I have all these photos of her. What if I did something with that? I don't know if that was her internal monologue. That's me editorializing. But I just love the conceit that we look back 40 to 50 years at the fashion of our parents or our grandparents, and we're intrigued by it, and we reimagine it through the current lens. And it was really interesting to see the way that Schiaparelli did that. She was not putting bustle cages into her clothes, so she did other fascinating things to give it a little bit of volume and shape in the back. And one of those things that I thought was really clever, she'd take these kind of peplums and she'd extend them into these draperies in the back of the frock. And as they extended into the back, the hem edge clearly had something like horsehair braid or something to give it a bit of rigidity and stiffness without making it too stiff. So this gave it a bit of volume, a bit of loft, and it made it sort of architectural in the background. So rather than lots of swaths of fabric gathered up and piled on top of the bustle cage, understructure. She sort of brought some of that structure outside the garment and built it into the fabric drapery. I thought it was really brilliant. I was very intrigued by it. She also did all these wild things with shoulder treatments. Oh my God, so good. And she had a real sense of humor for her fabric prints. And so she'd make these really gorgeous, elegant garments. And like my favorite, like many people's, I think, is the lobster dress. It's like the most beautiful evening frock, really elegant, beautifully constructed, has a lobster on it, and it's a big lobster. That lobster is not being subtle. Um, and as Rainbow Phoenix says, retro has always been a thing. That is true. And I think it's really important to recall that when we're talking about modern fashion, or when we're looking at a designer like Schiaparelli or Balenciaga, back when it was Christabel Balenciaga and not the garbage that is produced today. It's so bad. I had a little heated conversation with somebody recently about that because they didn't understand that I was talking about Christabel Balenciaga. The 90s being retro makes my back hurt, says Cheshire. I know, it feels too soon and very weird, to be honest. And here we are. It feels a little soon. It's more like 35 years. That's too soon, isn't it? Really, we should still be looking at the 1980s. I feel like we had another 5 to 10 years at least before we revisited the 1990s, don't you? I feel like we did. So, but here we are. Monsieur, did I wake you up? Was I too animated? Did I speak too loudly? All right. Okay. I have free arms again. So he had a nice look though. So this is a bit of a like anthropology historian approach to looking at fashion. I must admit, you can see some of my social sciences obsession. And oh my gosh, Bess says, I'm seeing the 70s everywhere, honestly. And see, that seems much more on timeline for me, Bess. I keep hearing that the young people are like bringing back the 90s. But when I look in certain directions, you are right. For instance, my haircut that I just got right before this trip is straight out of the 1970s, and it is so good, and I love it. And it's even called a shag, which is what they were called in the 70s. I'm like, great, I'll be retro. I want a shag. It was perhaps the best decision I've made for myself, haircut wise, possibly ever. It's really excellent for my curly hair, which is sort of related to fashion. But I did feel like I was time traveling back to the 1970s when I was like, yeah, yes, I want you to cut my hair like this. Can you make it look like Stevie Nicks? Great, that's what I want. Oh, Rainbow Phoenix says, I'm seeing early aughties stuff popping up, and I'm thinking, really? Already? Yeah, no, it's too soon. And yeah, having the 2000s, the aughties be vintage is hard. I know technically 25 years here in the United States is considered the vintage mark. So I'm trying to be generous, gracious, and fair. I'm trying not to get too up in my feelings. But as Cheshire says, my back hurts so much. Rainbow Phoenix says, I was obsessed with the 60s and 70s when I was in school. And that was what, like 20, 30 years in the past for you? Oh my gosh. All right. Cheshire says, I still want neon clear inflatable furniture, to be honest. Oh, so space age, so spacey, so sci-fi, so of an era. Yes. God, I remember thinking that was very cool at the time. So, my darlings, what a wonderful rollicking chat we've had. Oh my good no, Danielle, I am feeling away. First of all, okay, I have not seen your daughter in an age, but now she's a teenager, and she was definitely not a teenager the last time I saw her. And she's wearing Genko style wide jeans. Well, 1997 called. Oh my goodness. Wow. Oh, okay. So Joanne says, when I was an archaeologist with the Forest Service, we looked at sites 50 years old. That's amazing. And look, I know actually when we talk about it, 50 years can be actually quite a bit of time. A lot can change in 50 years. Look at what's changed in the last 50 years. Not only did we have the birth of the personal computer, cell phones, but also the rise of the internet. Those are huge technology changes that pushed massive cultural change. That's just in the last 50 years now. In the first 50 years of the 20th century, we had the rise of telephones, the car, airplanes, cross-country air travel, massive changes. So 50 years can be massive. I know it intellectually, but emotionally, I do not feel it. So, and with that cultural change and technology change, one of the things I think is so powerful about steampunk as a lens for looking at the past and as a genre of fiction or fashion or art is that it sort of grapples with this idea of how technological changes can impact culture, fashion, all the aspects of society. And so I always love playing with that a little bit. So many times, certainly in my early costume creations for Steampunk Landia and for time travel, I would often posit a question to myself like, what if instead of having an obsession with scarab beetles, and having those beautiful iridescent beetle shell embroidery all over their clothes and the Egyptomania that happened in the 19th century, what if instead it was clockwork that they became obsessed with? What would that look like? So I would ask myself questions like that, and then I would toy with it in my costume design. Cheshire says, so steampunk bondage pants are in our future. 100% absolutely confirmed. They're probably, actually, I really need to introduce you to my friend Jason and Hex. I think they've already done it. So yes, absolutely. 100%. Like, you can look at anything and you can say, what if, and then take that what if and pull that thread through your design. This is true for any kind of storytelling. And I talk about this, and maybe I haven't talked about it much here on our Stitch and Twitch Tuesdays, but when I'm presenting about costuming, especially as an introductory thing, or presenting about steampunk costuming in a general way, I often talk about how the costume is itself storytelling. What you wear tells us something about you. How you put it together tells us more. The colors, the fabrics, the fashion, what you eschew, what you embrace, all of that is enlightening into your character, your experience, your background, how you live your life. And you can take that information, that knowledge into your costume design And you can always be asking yourself, what is the story I am telling with this costume? Now, it can be as simple as I'm a lady of leisure, I like fine things, and I'm going to have a nice time. It doesn't have to be like a super complicated story, but you can make it quite complicated, especially with something like steampunk, where we're toying with pastiche and we're throwing together so many different elements from so many different modes of inspiration, and it's already a fantastical genre. In terms of neon clear steampunk, Cheshire. I have not seen neon clear steampunk, uh, but I have seen neon steampunk. There was this wonderful group of chums who decided one Dragon Con to do a steampunk cosplay, group cosplay, where instead of modifying their Nerf guns to be brown and brass and to rub and buff and paint them and cover them in gears, they would leave everything neon, and then they would build their steampunk costumes in the same color palette. And it was phenomenal. They looked amazing. I know a couple of people who were involved in that effort, and it was really stunning. I thought it was so clever and funny and cheeky, and it was so well done. I was also really amused by the way in which things like BuzzFeed and different sort of geeky web sites, aggregators, whatever they are, posted all of these things about now there's Nerf punk. Nerf punk is a thing. I was like, it was a group cosplay. It's steampunk in Nerf colors. It doesn't have to be its own separate genre of historical fantasy. It can be if you want it to be. I'm not going to stop you from calling things whatever you want, but it was just a fun, cheeky take on steampunk, and also a reminder that steampunk does not have to be all brown and sepia toned. Much less of a conversation point now than it was 10-15 years ago. But 10-15 years ago, the heated debates about whether or not you could have color in steampunk were something else. I remember that time, darlings, and I'm really happy that we've moved away from that and people are happy to accept a wide variety of color in their fashion. I like brown and black, by the way, so if that's your jam, I'm not deriding you. I'm just saying there's room for all of us. We can do lots of different things. I agree with this entirely. Cheshire says we should all wake up and say, does this make me look gay enough? Absolutely, 100%. Even if you are not a member of the LGBTQ plus community, join us in being fabulous and over the top and flamboyant and colorful. Confuse everyone. Make it hard for people who want to categorize you. None of us need to live in boxes or little narrow columns. We can all step outside and do what we want, I think. Also, hello, Culture Shock. I don't know if you are just getting in. It has been nearly 2 hours of me ruminating on fashion history. Oh, Culture Shock says, I am my own favorite cryptid. Oh, my darling. Yes, you are. It's so good to see you. Hello. It's good to be back. It's been a wonderful evening. We've done zero stitching, but we've talked a lot about costume design, ideas, approaches, theory, costume history. It's been lively and wonderful. Thank you all for listening to me ramble about all of these things. I clearly love very dearly. I'm deeply passionate about, and I love imagining the ways you can throw these things together. And I approach pretty much every costume in the same way. What is the story that I want to tell? And then my next question is, what if this weird thing? And so it's like this. The Jetsons, but what if they were gay? Boom. Right? I kind of love it. And so hopefully I'll be able to make our, queer the final frontier costumes happen. So, hello. Oh my gosh. Hello, Scone Mistress. Hello. You've been given a small reprieve from chaos to join. Hello, my darling. It's so good to see you. Oh, all right. Yeah, no, I'll show you again. So, the Jetsons Make It Gay by Pride edition. The Jetsons Make It Gay Men Loving Men edition. So there's a lot of literal flagging going on in both of these designs. I love how we went to the Dutch angles there for a moment. I'm very excited. So, and then there was a bigger comment up here. Oh my gosh. So Culture Shock says, I had to buy a new gas pedal for my sewing machine. It died 3 days before con when the only thing I had left on my cosplays was sewing. Oh, sweet baby Tesla. That is the worst. But also, isn't that always the way? I mean, usually if my machine is going to go tits up, it's always when I'm in the throes and I just like literally need to stitch some seams. It hasn't happened in a while. I make plenty of blood sacrifice in the workshop, by which I mean I stab myself on a sewing needle or nick myself with my sewing shears. Pure accidents, but you need to have them regularly. Hello, Rachel. Thank you for joining with the cool kids over on YouTube. So, yes, anyway, some fun potential projects in the works for the future. I'm very excited for next year's possibly special super secret, probably is going to happen adventure. It's not a return to Europe, just I will give you that much. But I am intrigued and excited. There are a couple of possibly cool, super secret things that might be happening. Some of them are more in our control than others, and I cannot wait until we can announce them and all of that. So that's happening. And it gives me some fun things to work on sewing wise and some new inspiration. But also, to be honest, truly, the Schiaparelli's exhibit is deeply inspirational. Also, okay, like Scott Mistress asks, Madam, have you signed an NDA? No, but I also haven't signed a contract. And until I sign on the dotted line on a contract, I never announce a new event. So, oh, Rainbow Phoenix says, being on the computer means I can hot both. Thank you, my darling. That's very kind. So, yes, I make a habit. We make a sort of professional habit of not announcing things officially until we've signed a contract. It's safer for everybody involved. It protects us and the organizations we're involved with. Like with a few exceptions, when we have a sort of like verbal agreement and we have a history of attending, I feel a little bit more confident. So like with Wild Wild West Con, we never waited for our contract to be signed because we knew we were going there basically every year. We'd been going there every year since year 2. I'd been going since year 1. We knew we were going to be there. So we always felt confident like saying we were going to Wild West Con. But when it's a new thing and we're getting to know each other, I like to be as professional as possible. Ooh, all right. So we've got some Culture Shock says, I need a replacement for Fan Fusion. I will not be returning. I heard that the lines were insane this year at Fan Fusion. This is Phoenix Fan Fusion. It just happened this past weekend. Obviously, I was not going to attend no matter what. It was like 1 week after I got back from being in Europe. I was exhausted and would not have had any time to prepare for such a thing, so I did not attend. So here's the thing, Culture Shock, my darling, my dear friend. I attend Tucson Comic Con, which happens in August, late August, early September. It's over the holiday weekend. I think it's a really lovely convention. It's about 50,000 people, maybe 75,000, so smaller than Phoenix Fan Fusion. I think it's more like around 50,000 people right now. It is not the same as Phoenix Fan Fusion. It is growing and evolving into its own sort of experience, but it's a lovely con, and it is run by a small number of people, and I highly recommend it. If you want to do something really personal, that I am very passionate about, that really needs people to step up for and become part of the community, and join us, that's TUSCon. It's so small and lovely. It is always fewer than 500 people because the ticket sales cap is 500 people. And it's just a stunning little convention. It's very literary in bent, so there's lots of books and authors and things, but I'm going to be very frank. I run the costuming track at that convention, and I'm very invested in getting more costumers to come to that convention. There's also a gaming room, and avid gamers are there. And so it's a lovely little convention. You will make friends. You will find community. You will make connections there. It's just the nature of the beast. And it is inexpensive, especially by comparison to things like Phoenix Fan Fusion. And it is over 50 years old. So it has a wonderful history. TUSCon happens in November. And I'll be certain to post an event page on Facebook. I haven't done that yet. I am going to be at TUSCon. I am part of the programming team. So there's that. The weather is cool and nice. And this year's author guest of honor is Rebecca Rowanhorse. She's wonderful. And there's always an artist guest of honor, and there's usually some musical guest of honor as well. Rainbow says, I will be at the TSS table at TCC this year offering costume repair. We need to talk more about that so we can get organized on that front, and talk about scheduling and things. So yes. So TUSCon and Tucson Comic Con, I definitely recommend. I have not been, but I've heard wonderful things about Bubonicon, which happens in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That is driving distance from Phoenix. If Phoenix Comic Con has gotten too crowded for you, San Diego Comic Con is not going to be your cup of tea. I love that event, but it is crazy the number of people who are there. I hear wonderful things about WonderCon, which happens in LA and is organized by the same people who organize San Diego Comic Con. So those are some to put on your list. WonderCon is smaller than San Diego Comic Con, and I understand it is not what Phoenix Fan Fusion was this year. Culture Shock says, I know Emerald City Comic Con is big, but I want to go at least once. Absolutely. I don't know how their line control is and everything, as I have not been, because it happened roughly at the same time as Wild Wild West Con. So we could never go because we were here doing Wild Wild West Con. But maybe that will be in my future. There's also Rose City Comic Con that happens in the Portland area. Bess knows that convention much better than I, but I've heard lovely things about it from people who've attended as guests. And yes, Wild Wild West Con had its last ride and its last outing this year. It will not be back as a convention. There are probably going to be some smaller events in the future. Certainly the Tucson Steampunk Society has returned to doing in-person events more regularly, and we're sort of continuing to gear up, please excuse the pun, to do more in-person events. And we're talking about some exciting things for next year. And again, this is not because I have a contract to sign, but this is because I never share details about something we haven't finalized as an event, as an organizer. Culture Shark says, I wish I would have known sooner about Wild Wild West Con. I would have gone to it. Yeah, they announced in February that it was going to be the last one. I know it was a really hard decision to make, and they were really grappling with whether or not to make it. So I was sad more people didn't have notice and couldn't attend themselves. It was a beautiful farewell. We had a really good end of the event, and I'm honored that I was there from the beginning to the end. Bess says about Emerald City was pretty good line-wise this year, as long as you know about the reservation system for the popular panels. Ooh, a reservation system for popular panels. How clever and smart and delightful. I love that. I love being able to make reservations. So WorldCon is really cool if you love old school kind of conventions and you love reading, if you are really into science fiction, fantasy, but it travels the world. This year it's in the LA area, and it's like less than 2 weeks or about 2 weeks after Costume College. I am too old to do that kind of timeline. So I chose Costume College this year. I can't do both, like physically and mentally, maybe more mentally than physically, but I can't do them both so close together. So I'm going to Costume College. But we went to WorldCon last year in Seattle, and it was wonderful. We had a great time, and I won an award, which was very nice. I think next year it's going to be in Montreal, which sounds beautiful actually, but that's much more involved travel. So I don't think WorldCon is an all the time fit. Some of the other traveling regional conventions are closing their doors. I think WesterCon ended as well. It's really so. I don't want to sound grim and doom and gloom, but it is really hard for any convention that is not one of those mega conventions to keep its doors open these days. So if there is a smaller convention, and I mean one under 20,000 people, so smaller is a range. If there is a smaller convention that you are interested in and you can attend it, I recommend attending. So Culture Shock says, Em and I are planning a Canada trip to visit family. Oh, that's so lovely. I haven't been to Canada in a while and I miss it. And also says, yeah, I need to start supporting Maricopa Con as well. Yes, supporting our local small conventions. Honestly, one of the things I love about being able to support a small local convention is the financial lift is usually far less for me. They don't have to bring me in as a guest. I can work as part of the team behind the scenes. I can do programming, often too much because I have a problem and I love to overbook myself. And look, if you come to TuskCon and you're like, why are you doing so many panels? Who did that to you? I did it to me. It was my choice. I'm on the programming team. I signed off on it. You can't be angry at anyone, but you can look at me and wonder what's wrong with me. That's fine. But I did it to myself. So I can't complain about it. It's my own decision. But I like that I can do that. And this is true. I don't have children at the con with me, and that makes a huge difference. Indeed, I'm not responsible for small humans. I'm only responsible for myself mostly, and maybe my little coterie that I'm supporting and helping who's there with me, and vice versa. So it is a very different vibe than having children. I think that the smaller conventions are nice in terms of like being able to wrangle children. My God, Culture Sock says I had 5 kids under my care this year. Oh, my cats had so many children to keep track of. That's a lot. That's a lot. And I've heard that Phoenix was its biggest and most intense that it's ever been this year. So well done, you, Team Dad, all the way. So, my darlings, clearly I can talk at length about conventions. Rainbow Phoenix says, LOL, not me signing up to run like 4 or 5 different games at Rincon last year. Yes, it's like that, my darling. Speaking of, are you running games again this year at Rincon? And speaking of, if you like gaming, tabletop gaming, board games, RPGs, I don't know what their video game and console gaming presence is at Rincon, but Rincon Gaming Convention is wonderful convention, and also small, and it's pretty easy to get in, and it's delightful. Culture Shock says, Saturday morning at Phoenix Fan Fusion, it took 2 hours to clear the line and get into the con, and it was like, what, in 90 plus, coming up on 100, did it top 100 degrees while you were in line? That's really intense. 101. I'm just going to take a drink. That's wild. That's really intense. That's a long time to be standing in the heat. I could not humanly do that, actually, personally. Culture Shock says, I'm almost glad I was not in cosplay armor. Yeah, no, I'm just imagining the people in full armor builds and furries and fur suits and all of that. Oh, that's really rough. And yeah, like, look, being overheated and standing in line, that combination will really like sap your mood, sap your spoons, and like there's nothing like being too hot and dehydrated probably to sort of ruin your mood. Yeah, no, so Rainbow Phoenix says, so I might run a game just to guarantee I will step away and play something. Yes, yes. Sometimes I run a certain programming so I can participate in it. It's a thing all of us who volunteer for conventions and work behind the scenes have to do sometimes. So, my darlings, clearly this has been quite the Twitch and Stitch tonight. We have like covered many topics. It's been wonderful. I have loved getting to chit chat with all of you. Thank you for a truly delightful evening of conversation. And thanks for going on this ramble with me. if you ever have questions about a convention I attend, I'm always happy to talk about my experiences and to give you some insights to how it is and to do my utmost to help you have a positive experience. Um, so, so many of the conventions we've attended have been really wonderful little gems, and they are small, so it is a hard sell to get people to come to them. But because they are smaller, you don't have a 2-hour line to get in, right? Generally speaking. Now, there are some bookish conventions, some fantasy book balls that have also had some line control issues. Usually they're in their first year, and so they do not know what they don't know. And some of them have been able to like rectify that in the future years. Those are not usually conventions I've attended or know much about. I just hear the scuttlebutt. But I tend to give a first year event a lot of grace. And I expect more from an event that's been around for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? So thank you. Oh, Rainbow Phoenix, I'm so happy that I could make for a joyful evening for you after your bad day. I warned everyone at the beginning, this is not a very organized tea time. Stitch and Twitch tonight. It was not, I didn't have a good plan for things. I don't have something lined up to make, and I was not ready to pick up the Gertie dress because I have to like go over the instructions and make sure I understand my next steps. And that would have been really boring to watch me just reading instructions and like basting in a stitch to like put in a zipper or what have you. So next time we'll be back next Tuesday, more sewing shenanigans. And remember, this is a sewing AMA. So I am always happy to answer any sewing questions that are in my purview to answer. If I don't know something, I will always tell you. And I will always do my utmost to point you at good resources if I know about them. I don't have all the answers, but when I have them, I'm happy to share them. I think that's the way we all get better, right? But I'm also happy to answer questions about conventions, convention life, programming, cosplay in general, all of those things, costume history. If it's in that purview, I'm happy to answer those questions. I'm probably not answering questions about my dating life, which is abysmal anyway. So there's no questions to answer. I will answer questions about hair care and makeup because it entertains me to do so. So anyway, you can bring a lot of questions to Tuesday nights is what I'm saying. Please tell your friends, and if you haven't, which I suspect everyone who's here tonight has already, please like and subscribe so you get notifications, or like and follow, however that works, whatever website you're on, whatever platform you're on. It really helps us if you get those notifications and come and join us. We try and be very regular in our schedules, so you know when we're going to be around. But we've had a long break, and so we're getting back into the schedule. You can find our month of programming up on our website, madamaskew.com. It's in the Blogalicious updates. That's where I post things that are public for everyone. I also post things to Patreon, of course. And if you didn't know, Patreon is the thing that helps feed my cats, that keeps me in tea, and that helps me be able to make art and to do all of these ridiculous things. Without our Patreon community, I wouldn't be doing any of this. I would be doing something else as a time traveler. I'm just not sure what. So thank you, Patreon community, for supporting us and all of our shenanigans. Dedicated to music, dear Bess. It has been so good to catch up and to chit chat about all the things. Thank you for the great suggestions on fabric too. I'm going to be going and looking at that Colonial Williamsburg fabric you suggested. I'm going to check it out. So I'm also going to have a terrible, terrible allergy attack apparently right here at the end. I love you all. Please remember, no matter what, most important thing of all, to treasure yourselves as I treasure you. The world is a hard, complicated, stressful place. There's a lot of things happening, but it is Pride Month, my darling, and it is the perfect time to find joy and community and do ridiculous nonsense for yourself. So go out there, wear your favorite, most colorful shirt, put on a tiara, drink the good tea, wash your hands, get your vitamins and minerals, get your vaccines and boosters, wear a mask if you need to. Take care of yourselves. And I will see you Friday night for Friday tea with the Grand Arbiter at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. And I'll be back next Tuesday with more sewing nonsense. Cheers, everyone.